I am the anti-virality king.
Today we're talking to Anthony Gugliotta, professional photographer and YouTuber with over 380,000 subscribers.
I absolutely think you should try to post as much as humanly possible.
Anthony has a combined community of over 800,000 followers across platforms where he shares content focused on photo editing, camera tips, and teachable photography moments.
Don't make content for brands. Make content that you want to make. And the reason for that is
Anthony shares his journey going from an architect to a full-time content creator.
I got 10,000 TikTok followers before I probably even had like 100 YouTube subscribers.
We talk about monetization, content workflow, lessons learned along the way.
If you're trying to build a personal brand, instead of spending $1,000 on ads, reinvest it and make better content.
Just stick around and watch to the end to get Anthony's tips on building your personal brand online.
The biggest mistake I made was...
Well, thanks so much for being here, Anthony.
No problem. Glad to be here.
This is the content era, a podcast by creative entrepreneurs for creative entrepreneurs. And we created this podcast to help teach, inspire other creative entrepreneurs to create content, build their personal brand, and learn also from other creators who have done that for themselves, and the tips and tricks of the trade and some of the mindsets that they can take away and apply to their own online businesses and workflows. So we're super excited to have you here. You yourself have built a following on YouTube of over 380,000 subscribers, right? And
that is correct.
Over 800,000 across all your platforms, where you share content focused around video editing, camera tips, and teachable photography moments, which is really awesome, very high volume content, and been really enjoying following you for the last 6 months or so.
Yeah. And Anthony, I can't remember how do we even know each other? I know we have mutual friends in common.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like it's just you were in Toronto for a while, and I feel like I'll just like scroll and be like, oh, they're from Toronto, follow. And I feel like that's probably how it happened.
Yeah, I feel like I was definitely following you before you even, blew up online. So it's been pretty cool, like seeing your journey and like where you are now. And so that kind of brings us into like our first question. We wanted to dive a little bit into your backstory, just so, all of the viewers like know a little bit more about you. So from architect to photographer to now YouTuber, tell us a little bit about like what inspired you to quit, your 9-to-5 and pursue content creation full time.
Yeah. So, I mean, it like photography is obviously what I do public facing on social media, but it's been something I've done just as long as, went to architecture school, did my undergrad, did my grad school in architecture, became licensed. And it was one of those things that, the pandemic happened, the thing we don't want to talk about. But I started doing more social media on the side because all of a sudden I had all this free time. And it started really casually. Like, okay, I'm just going to, at first you just post whatever you want for fun. And then you realize, oh, maybe I could post some of like the photography that I do, or maybe I can share some photo tips. And that's how it started with me, where I started sharing like Lightroom editing tips. And, at the time I think I was still in a phase of learning and getting better at those things. And so, me sharing was a way to like, hey, let's learn this thing together and see what's possible. But it was really through the pandemic and the ability from when I started working from home that I had more time to kind of pursue it as a side hustle, if you want to call it that, initially. And then just over time, it grew gradually into kind of what it is today.
So it's like a blessing in disguise in a way. I think for a lot of people, it created that space that was needed to focus back on your hobby and maybe explore some different elements of that you could be develop. Like, what do I say? Like some different areas that you can develop further, such as your creative side. I'm curious, for context, like we just joined the Grow with Video Summit last weekend, and we had lots of conversations with creatives that also have other careers. And I noticed that the first train of thought when getting on social media and creating content for like YouTube and other platforms is to create content based on their job or the thing that they practice every day. So I'm curious, in terms of your journey, why did you choose photo and video as your focus, having that architectural background?
So I mean, part of it was that architecture is like when you're doing a lot of the client facing stuff that I was doing, not that it had like NDAs, but it's like I'm working for another business, and so that's not my intellectual property, and so I'm not able to, like, unfortunately, make a body of content around that type of work. There were early days, there were a few videos that I did that were architecture based. Like if you go back on my YouTube channel and you search, like at the time I was looking for a condo. And so I kind of made like a mini documentary about like, here's what an architect looks for when they're buying a condo, or here's what architecture school was like. Just some like really early pieces. And, you know, at the time I did think, oh, maybe I will grow my brand, my personal brand, my business around architecture. But at the same time, you know, architecture and what I was doing on a daily basis is very multifaceted. So there's a lot of, you know, photography is integrated into that, going to a construction site, documenting things. And so my approach when it comes to photography tends to be more photojournalistic in the sense that I will capture the things as they're happening, rather than some photographers like to go out and like create a moment or create a stylized shoot or, you know, make things super over the top. I'm just like, I'm documenting these projects. I'm documenting, you know, what I'm doing at home or my family life or whatever. And so eventually that kind of turned into the style of content that I do now, where it's more like whatever I stumble into, whatever I find, whatever are the everyday photography moments is kind of what I base my content around. But what ended up happening was early days, I had those architecture videos. I had some Lightroom editing tutorials that I was like, you know what? Same sort of thing that I talked about where it's like, I'm learning this and I feel like I want to share it because it's something valuable. And so I made a lot of early videos that were like Lightroom editing tutorials. And what happened is the YouTube algorithm said, those are the videos that we're going to share. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these videos are doing well. Maybe that's an indicator to me that I should continue doing more photography tips as opposed to the architecture videos that maybe people aren't as interested in. So it's kind of a long answer, but, you know.
Yeah, totally. So you listened to your audience and you went with it. That's, I mean, could say that that's a smart move, right? Strategy point of view. So nice.
So at what point did you feel like your content creation could actually be a lucrative business? We were watching a video yesterday where you sent that letter, saying your resignation letter, saying I quit. And that being a very, like a keystone pinnacle moment in your journey where you said, I'm going to be doing content creation now. So tell us what led you to that point and how did that go down?
Yeah, a lot of things. I mean, one of the things I mentioned in that video was that I had kind of already built up this like safety net of having, you know, a certain amount of money in the bank. And actually one of the things, because you mentioned Think Media, one of the things that Sean is always talking about is, you know, when you have like this baseline of, okay, I have some money coming from my content creation, some money coming from this side hustle, so to speak, and I'm only dedicating, you know, maybe it's 25% of my income is coming from, you know, 10% of my time or something like that, right? Well, what if you then switch and say, now I'm going to dedicate 100% of my time, and this, what was then 25% could become more. So I was at this point where I wasn't really, like I wasn't making AdSense money in what you would consider to be anything substantial. I was doing maybe some odd photography gigs on the side. I think at the time I had like 1, maybe 2 brand deals under my belt. And so I said, okay, I have this safety net that can bridge the gap between the thing I'm doing and the thing that I see potential for. And if I now stop my day job and dedicate 100% of my time over the next year or 2 years, then I can potentially grow what is 25% of my income to 100 or 200% of my income. Like, it can grow more. So I think I answered the question, but it was like this whole idea of I see the potential and I'm willing to sacrifice the short term now for the long term that potentially could come.
Wow. That is such a great mindset to have, especially in the day and age of, instant gratification, like the way these short form platforms have trained us to be and to expect success to happen, right? So, I mean, that's great that you had that instilled in you from the very start. And I'm just curious, actually, were you following any other, big content creators at the time and like taking inspiration, kind of like them giving you permission, like, hey, if those guys can do it, I can do it too?
I mean, that's a good question. People always ask, like, who inspires you to do these things. I tried, yes. So the answer is yes, but also I don't like necessarily watching. Like the danger is that if you watch people, then you want to become those people and you try to like imitate them to a sense. I mean, I think, if you're in Toronto is full. I'd say it probably has like the most amount of like photography content creators. So I wouldn't say there was anyone in particular that influenced me or inspired me or that I was like aware of. In fact, I was probably the opposite, where I wasn't watching people and kind of just making content in bliss with a little bit of naivety, just like, this is what I think will work. This is what I enjoy, so I'm just going to make it, rather than being influenced in one particular way or another. Sometimes it's bad, but it's also good.
Is YouTube so you started first and foremost with YouTube, right?
So kind of like I've posted YouTube videos like randomly throughout the years that were just like even some weird photography, like me testing a lens that's like, I think 10, like videos that are 10 years old that no one ever saw and I probably removed from my channel. But I did. So when the pandemic hit, I had this moment of, TikTok was new, right? And I knew at the time, like, I was posting architecture photography on Instagram. No one cared about it. Like my 100, 200 friends and family that were following me maybe cared about it. And, I was doing things like I would go on hikes and shoot photos and kind of post some of those photos. And you can scroll back on Instagram. Most of those are still there. But, it's this whole mentality we have in our head that Instagram doesn't like me or the Instagram algorithm isn't promoting me. Well, I felt the same way as someone who had 200, 300 followers that were just my friends and family. But TikTok was a new thing. And so I decided, well, why don't we try TikTok? Because Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts didn't exist at that time. So technically speaking, I would say the journey began on TikTok with short form content. But at the same time, I knew that there was a bigger world of YouTube, and so I would create the occasional YouTube video. But it was really the TikTok content that took off first. Like, I got 10,000 TikTok followers before I probably even had like 100 YouTube subscribers, right? So over time, TikTok, but then eventually YouTube became kind of my prominent thing that I focused on.
And why YouTube? Why is YouTube your prominent platform that you focus on now?
I mean, part of the reason is like the monetization aspect of it, but also like the conversion aspect of it. If like we're talking about building your personal brand and what people connect with and what people care about, is that like TikTok and Instagram Reels are kind of optimized for a particular viewer who is in a particular mindset of, I'm just like consuming stuff blindly. Whereas on YouTube, because of its relationship to Google, and how many times have you how to do this, how to do that? You search on Google, right? How to bake a cake, how to tie a tie, all these things. And so I knew in the back of my head that if I had these ideas that were, how to edit this in Lightroom or how to shoot photography in a certain way, that I could create a TikTok. But if I created a long form video, that is a piece of content that I knew would hit an audience. And so, now having done, thousands of pieces of content, it's shown itself true to me, where, YouTube is the platform that is going to do better in the long run, or at least for now. Basically, yeah.
And so were you creating lots of evergreen content, or what was your approach when you started? Was it evergreen or more trending content? Or how did you approach those initial stages?
When I first started, I had no idea what evergreen content was. I'll be completely honest. I kind of, the way, like going back to architecture school, is I was always the guy who knew how to do all the things, like the technical things, knew how the software worked, knew how to work the program. And so inevitably I would get a friend or a classmate coming to me, be like, hey, can you show me how to do this or show me how to do that? And, even back when I was in architecture school, I thought, I should just make YouTube videos so that everyone asking me can just go watch them. And so when I started doing my YouTube with photography, it was the same sort of idea, is that I kind of have people asking me these questions on TikTok. Maybe I should just make a long form video. So yes, some of it was evergreen in the sense that I was strategizing and thinking that this is something that people will want to watch. I didn't know what that term meant, but a lot of it was just me having fun and experimenting, because we see all our favorite creators doing vlogs and documenting their lives. And so there was a few videos, if you go back far enough, where it's just me out in the forest doing nothing, not teaching anything, just going for a walk, being I'm out with my camera, guys, and that's it. So there was a little bit of both.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, it's so with retrospect, do you still see some of your initial content performing well today? Are you still growing views or getting comments and stuff from their early pieces of content?
Yeah, I mean, definitely more so on YouTube than on TikTok or on any of the short form platforms. I think, again, obviously the evergreen content or those how-to educational pieces are definitely the ones that still continue to get views. I mean, I would say that, content definitely has a life cycle, and some of those videos now that are three, almost 4 years old are kind of videos I could remake at this point, because I've learned more, or the programs have changed, or the techniques have changed. But yeah, they definitely still get views.
So, all right. So we watched one of your YouTube videos also. I think it was 250,000 subs in 1 year, grow on YouTube in 2024. And that's where you mentioned a little bit about the initial goals that you set for yourself, right? For growing these channels. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was 10K on Instagram and 25K on YouTube, or something along the lines of that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to reach and even surpass that initial goal? And also, how did you hold yourself accountable to actually get that done, right? Because coming from a 9 to 5, you have a set schedule, and now you're having to hold yourself accountable to do all these things and complete things on a deadline. Maybe did you create a schedule for yourself, posting schedule and all those things?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've adopted, even till today, the same sort of schedule that I want to say 90% of YouTube creators have, where it's I want to put something out every single week. And I want to say I've done that for the last 2-3 years, minus the odd week where you're away on vacation or whatever. But I had another point, now I forgot it. But yeah, I mean, I try to keep that schedule as much as I can.
Yeah, the initial question, because sorry, I guess I asked two questions in one go, but the initial question was, I guess, how long did it take you to get to that initial goal of 25K?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know exactly how long it took to get to 25,000. I know so referencing the earlier video that you mentioned where I quit my job, when I quit my job and decided to do content creation full time, I only had 5-ish thousand subs on YouTube. I think TikTok was 100,000, and so that was maybe what 20. So it was actually 2 years ago because we're recording this in May. So 2 years ago, 2022, and then I had done 2 years before that, maybe. So let's say posting every week for at least a year. I think the year before that was kind of inconsistent. So let's say 2 years on and off took me to get to 5,000-ish subscribers. So quite a while. Whereas TikTok was really fast because back in the day when it was new, it's just like everyone was following everyone. Now that's slowed down a little bit.
And so when you reach 25K, like what were your thoughts, or what was next for you? I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, when sometimes when you set a goal, like I'm gonna make a certain amount of money or reach a certain amount of subscribers, and then you reach the goal and you hit this, you're not going to stop creating content. I feel like at that point is where purpose really kicks in and the overall like mission that you're trying to achieve. So like what was that driver that kept you going? Like what was it that you had in mind to achieve through your YouTube channel?
So I mean, at the point that I had hit 25,000, I had already committed myself to doing this full time, which is a lot sooner than most people would. And again, because I had the other platforms, TikTok and Instagram, doing somewhat better, I knew that there was a road to monetization. But in terms of what kept me going was that initially I was doing like other stuff on the side. So I was doing like freelance video and photo like that. So that year where I was, hit 25,000, I was also accepting wedding gigs, right? So I was doing wedding videos. I was second shooting for weddings. I was doing like the odd video job that, people would see my social content and go, oh, Anthony does video photo stuff. Maybe I should hire him. So even between me leaving my job and deciding to do YouTube content creation full time, I knew that road to monetization, to making content creation on YouTube like a permanent thing, is that it often takes people 2 plus 3, 4, 5 years to get to a point where that's even anything considerable. So I knew I needed to take jobs in between that. And, given the type of content that I create and that I think even you guys create, it's like that is something you very much do. Like you're doing stuff on the side that people don't like. People will never see my wedding videos, but they're out there and they're great. And hey, listen, would I shoot another wedding? At this point, probably not, but it is something I can do.
All right. Sometimes questions come up. Oh yeah, I may touch on this a little bit later. I'll store that in my mind. But okay, so you've worked with brands like Aperture, Artlist, Canon, Kodak, and many more. So I'm curious, how far into your YouTube content creator journey did you start getting these types of brand deals? And did you initiate them, or did you get approached by these brands?
So, I mean, it starts off very small. I would say at the point I had, maybe it was around the 10,000 TikTok mark, hitting 10,000 on TikTok, where, you have some videos that do well, was when I started getting approached. Initially, it's not, you're not going to get approached by massive, saying I worked with Canon and Kodak, didn't happen until several, deals and more subscribers down the road. I mean, it's hard to say because things change over the years, where like, you know, having 10,000 on TikTok maybe isn't as substantial as it was back then. But what I would, so it's less about the timing or about the subscriber count, but it's more about you making good content that brands can potentially connect with, if that makes sense. And so what I noticed is like the first deal I ever did, I believe, was with a lens filter company. And it was because I had gone and made my own videos about lens filters. And so that company saw it and decided, hey, we want to work with this guy. Same thing with the lighting, same thing with working with Canon, is that, you know, I've shot Canon for almost 15 years at this point. And so I know the system very well. And, you know, this is kind of strategy, but you'll notice in almost all my videos, I'm holding a camera. So even if I don't say that this video is about photography or cameras, you see the camera and you know. And for me, that was me holding a Canon camera because that was my main camera that I shoot with. And, you know, a lot of the tips I'm giving, I'm showing it on the system and on the cameras and on the gear that I use. And so for me, when I started getting approached was whenever I had, like, let's say a piece of content that performed really well, that someone at that brand or someone on the marketing team noticed and said, hey, you know, let's work with this guy, or he's making the type of content that we want. So I can't necessarily say like there's a certain point, specific point or specific subscriber or a certain number of years in that it happened, but it was at the point where I had a piece of content that fit that brand and they saw it do really well that they approached.
I see. So for creators that are wanting to set themselves up to be able to work with brands, what advice would you have strategically on how they can position themselves in an attractive way for those brands to reach out to them?
Yeah, I mean, so I would actually flip the question and say, don't make content for brands, make content that you want to make. And the reason for that is because sometimes we can get trapped in the marketing machine of like, oh, I need to create something that X brand likes, or I need to create something that Y brand likes. And then the problem is once you've created that system for yourself, now you're just creating content for brands versus creating the content that you and your audience enjoy. So I think the important thing is that make that content that you enjoy, and then the right brands, it might not even be the brands that you expect, but the right brands will see it, and suddenly it will open up opportunities that you didn't even think about.
That's great advice. And that also keeps the content authentic, right? Authentic to you and to your beliefs, your way of doing things. And another part is sustainable. Like I feel like it can be very hard to create content when you're trying to come up for ideas for someone else versus analyzing your life and the hundreds of things that you do in your everyday life that you can create content around and keeping it fully authentic. And in a fast-paced social media world that we live in now, the authentic approach is definitely the best approach, because I don't know about you, but I feel like some people lack authenticity, or at least embracing their authenticity, because we're in this like pretend world on social media where people highlight all of their wins, and it's hard to see some of the hardships in some of the creators and the journey that they encounter in their journey. So yeah, I really appreciate that point of view.
But it's also worth noting, like you mentioned, like there are some strategies you can use, right? Like you can be a little bit strategic about it without trying to like chase the brands too much, such as holding a little thing like holding a camera in all your videos. And it's actually a lot of people in our industry, like the social media marketing, content marketing industry, talk about it, where, you know, hold a random piece of object to draw your viewers' attention. Well, in your case, it's not random, it's very much intentional. So it's good to know too that there are little things like from a strategic point of view that you can do.
Yeah, and a lot of those things just happen organically too. Like was at an event a week and a half ago, and I met someone from another country, actually from India, who a good chunk of my audience is from India, and I do this thing, and I don't do it I didn't do it intentionally initially, where I'll like hit the record on my camera and then walk across my room, then grab a prop, which is my camera and my stool, and walk towards the camera. And so I have some videos where I'll just walk into camera holding my stool. And I had this guy that I met was like, I love it when you walk into camera with your stool. And I'm like, sweet, like, I'm glad you like it. I had no idea that this was, like, it's become a thing now, like a little bit of like I don't know if you want to call it a branding thing, but it's like its own little meme that, the people who watch me are like, look at Anthony, he grabbed the stool again. Like, it's a memorable thing that's like, grab that silly random object and just film whatever.
Yeah, and it's unique to you, right? It becomes like your little signature move. Plus, I think part of specifically what you said with the stool is people love getting to see a little bit behind the scenes, right? A little bit into your world, not just like what Seb was saying, like everything just being polished and perfect, but a little bit of that like humanness too. So
yeah, exactly.
All right, so you made a reel, actually one of the ones that you shared with me when we did our collaboration, about why creators shouldn't accept free products. Can you elaborate a little bit on your reasoning behind that?
Hey guys, it's Seb.
And Jazz here.
And if you're enjoying this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. We appreciate the support as we grow our channel here on YouTube.
And if you're an entrepreneur who wants to grow your personal brand this year, join our free community on Facebook. The link is in the description below.
Let's get back to it.
Yeah, so it's I mean, everything is made to kind of like capture your attention. Like, what do you mean you shouldn't accept free products? And that video came out, so obviously I get a lot of inbound emails. I think most content creators do, that are like, we want to send you free stuff. We want to send you free stuff. But then the expectation quite often in return from the brand is that you will guarantee them content. And so when you're first starting off, it's very tempting to just accept everything that comes to you. And you don't even realize it at first, because the brand will say, hey, we'll send you this if you make a video. And you're like, all right, you're going to send me a $300 product, I'll make a video. And the problem is that, you see it as free, but it's because you're neglecting the value of your content. And what I would say is that in most cases, when you're accepting a free product and guaranteeing a video, the content creator actually loses, because they're giving away more value than the value of the product. So, I mean, there's cases to be said, if someone's going to give you a $1 million Ferrari, then sure, like do the reel, do whatever. But that's because the brand and the product at that point has more value than you. So there's a little bit of a process that I've set up for myself when accepting free products. The first is that I will respond to the brand and say, okay, is this an actual free product with no strings attached, or do you want content guaranteed in return? And I would say 90%, 80% of the time, they're like, yeah, we want you to make a video. Well, now you've created a contractual relationship, even if you haven't signed a contract, that puts all of these, I don't want to get too deep into it, but FTC regulations, and now you have to disclose this and do all this, and it creates a tax implication, depending on the country that you live in Canada, that would create a tax implication for me. And so what I now do, and what I recommend other content creators do, is say, you can send it, it has to be no strings attached, and I am not guaranteeing any content in return. Send it. If I like it, and I test it, legitimately try it for a week, 2 weeks, a month, then we can go back and talk about making a video. And then we can talk about, okay, what is my value? What is your value? Is this an equivalent exchange of value? And one more thing. The one thing I've now started to do that I kind of alluded to in that video, and I have a full YouTube video on, is that because a lot of these brands are operating overseas and sometimes language barriers just don't work, is I now ask the brand to sign what I call a gear release, which basically everything I've just said is in a very small one-page contract that says you're welcome to send anything. Here's all the agreements. And I even put like if I don't like it, you can have it back type of thing, because a lot of brands are worried, whoa, if we send them a $300 product, now we're out $300. No, I literally put in there, if I don't like it, you can request for it back. And then I say, hey, just sign the bottom, and then it clarifies the whole relationship. And it makes it so much easier.
That's such a good strategy. And I'm curious if you could share what's the response that you typically get from companies when you take this approach? Do they flip you off? Do they welcome it? What's kind of like the general consensus when you stand your ground as a creator and say, hey, like let's actually do a value exchange?
Yeah, I mean, I would say when I hit these companies with this information, I would say maybe only about 10% of them end up going through. So the problem is a lot of companies are sending mass emails, right? They're sending emails to, they're BCCing everyone, so you don't see it, but they're sending it to 20 creators at a time. And so unfortunately, the reality is that they're just going to go with the path of least resistance. So I know that there are creators out there, because when I don't get a response, it means they've responded to someone else. So there are creators out there who unfortunately are doing these value exchanges. I would say that the brands that end up going through with it are the ones who have decided they are already invested into you, right? So maybe they've already seen my content or your content. They're just saying, hey, we noticed Anthony or whoever really likes pulling up chairs into his videos. Let's send him a chair, right? They're already invested because they've seen your content and they understand you. So I would say it's probably like 10% of the inbound emails wanting to do free product or product exchanges that actually end up manifesting into anything.
Okay, that's really good to know. I remember when I started my photography journey, like you were saying before, the value of the company was higher than the value that I provided at the time. So I was actively looking for free gigs, and I'll shoot this for free and I'll do that for free. Until one time I shot for a Canada-wide company, a clothing company, and it bit me in the ass hard. Because there was a lack of communication in the expectations of what the nature of the exchange was supposed to be, and it was painted like a community project, but at the end of the day, there was no recognition or compensation for myself or for any of the creators across Canada that they were using for a marketing campaign. And that's really when, at that point, I thought, okay, it's kind of like my first nationwide partnership, so I'll make it happen. But I wasn't doing it for the money or anything like that, but it made me realize that, you know what, creators really have to put their foot down. And for those that are wanting to build their career as a photographer, as a videographer, at some point you have to hit that crossroad and say, you know what, like I can't do this for free, or I just can't do this without an agreement on how this is really going to work moving forward. Because a lot of the times it can be used to your disadvantage. And there is one thing that you all have to protect as photographers and creators, is your intellectual property.
And I'll add to this, and I think this applies whether you're doing gigs or accepting free product, is that, maybe you're listening to this right now and you go, well, Anthony, Seb, that's easy for you to say because you already have a client base, you already have followers. But if someone wants to send me a free thing, I'm going to say yes. Or if someone wants to have me on a Canada-wide campaign, yeah, I'm going to do it for free because I need to build my portfolio. I think we've all been there. It's me too, where those initial ones, you don't know any better and you just say yes. And I would say, that's okay for the first one. Do the first one as a learning experience. Accept that first unpaid gig so that you can build your portfolio. But once you've done one free product, once you've done that one free paid gig, now that's in your portfolio. Now you have an example of what you can do, and you should then be able to leverage that when the next brand, when the next company comes along, so that now you can actually get paid for it.
Yeah, you can't keep working for exposure forever, right? I mean, you've got to
Exactly.
pay the bills.
And to add to that, actually, it's if you're gonna do it for free, the mindset could kick in for some people. That's like, well, I'm not getting paid for it, so I'm just gonna half-ass it. But in fact, that's a phenomenal opportunity to actually blow it out of the water, because you have a brand that can prop you up, at least as a project that you've had, and not to say or promise or have the expectation that they're going to want to work with you, but it could open the door, if not through that company, for other companies to see the value of your work and your potential, and maybe open up those opportunities.
And I'll add that even at the stage that I'm at now, and I'm sure even for the two of you, is that I'm okay accepting those types of gigs still on my terms if I know that it will open up future opportunities. So like Aperture was one of the companies that you mentioned, and yes, I've done paid stuff for them, but because I like them and I'm literally using their products right now to like this video, is I will do videos for, if they're like, hey, here's a new product, do you want to try it? Let us know what you think. And, you know, everyone's going to have a different relationship with the different companies. For me, they're a company that, you know, I've met with them in person, all this type, like we have good working relationships, and I know that is going to be a good situation for me to be in, so that maybe the next company comes along and they go, oh, Anthony worked with Aperture or Amaran or whatever. They trust him. Now we'll trust him. And so anyway, there's strategy in there. There's business strategy in there, whether you're a content creator or a small business.
Yeah, of course. It's never black and white, right? It's okay to make certain exceptions, especially if it's for a brand that you really do want to work with eventually and admire. So
We love Aperture too. We have their lighting. It's just so high quality. It just works so well.
yeah.
This video
Okay, so
is
let's
not sponsored.
Yeah,
Not sponsored.
it's
It's not sponsored by Aperture at all. We just happen to like their products.
But if you happen to see this, no, I'm just kidding. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the business side of content creation.
Sure.
Can you share a little bit about what your revenue streams are in terms of, you know, different creator programs across the different social media platforms, with, you know, YouTube assuming being one of the ones at the forefront?
Yeah. Yeah. So I like to tell people, I mean, YouTube AdSense is great. No other like Instagram, TikTok, they pay me zero in terms of like ad revenue. So I have a lot of the typical ones that if you've ever seen any of these videos where YouTubers are like, here's all my streams of income. AdSense definitely pays me, I like to say, a paycheck. So in your mind, if you can imagine what a paycheck is, AdSense pays me a paycheck. Now, because I do a lot of gear related content, or like I feature gear in a lot of my videos, I have affiliate sale income. So like Amazon is a big one. So that's another paycheck. There's a lot of other small affiliates, but if you're listening to this and you're thinking about doing affiliate sales, I would, like, Amazon is a big one. If you're into cameras, B&H or Adorama, any of those ones, you can also get affiliate sales from. I also have my own digital products, which is something that I'm always kind of building out. That's not quite a paycheck, but it is in the like $1,000-ish range of like what I'm making. So I have like Lightroom presets, I have some templates, I have, you know, anytime I'm starting to get better at this, but anytime, because there's a lot of things that I create for myself that are like Premiere Pro templates or Photoshop templates, and so I slowly am turning those into assets and making videos about them with the intent of helping other people. So it's like, hey, listen, I've invested 3 hours, 6 hours a day worth of time into building out this template. If you want to save a day worth of your time, you know, buy my template for $12.99 or whatever. So there's that. And then if I do brand deals, that is, sometimes they can be significant. Sometimes they're smaller. It just depends on the deliverables and whether it's, so So there's two types of brand deals you can do. One being an integration, where you're just like doing an ad read, and then there's others where you can do like a product feature, and so you're making a video just about that product. So that was, I think, 4 streams of income. And then sometimes I will do the random photography paid gig on the side. This is the first year that I guess I have done a few paid things on the side, but it's probably the least substantial proportion of my income. And I kind of, at this point, because of the way I create content and all of these other things that I'm focused on, it's less worth my time to go out of my way to do like a $500, I don't know, photo shoot in the middle of the day. I would rather just sit home and edit a bunch of videos, because it's, in the long term, I know that that's going to pay off more. So I guess there's kind of like 5 streams of income there.
So which of your streams of revenue makes the most in order from top to bottom?
First has to be brand deals, assuming you get a brand deal. Second, I would say, is Amazon affiliates. Third, AdSense. Sometimes that might compete slightly with doing like paid gigs on the side. Paid gigs, and then the least has to be my digital presets and all of the products that I'm selling.
Okay.
Interesting.
I get the sense that there's an assumption that AdSense would be number 1, and a lot of creators strive to get monetization done on the channel. But what's your take on monetizing when you're early in your career as a creator? Just for some contrast, Tom Noski, one of our mentors, he is of the belief that you should start creating products and monetizing as early as you starting, with the understanding that your very first digital products or whatever you create is going to be crap. And through your iterations and the time moving forward, you're going to be able to make them better and cater them more to your audience. On the other side, there's people that say you have no business creating a product or monetizing until you reach a certain amount of followers or subscribers. What's your take on that?
So I think the biggest mistake I made was not making a digital product sooner. That said, I agree with both of those sentiments. I think there is a lot of content creators making products that they probably shouldn't be making. That's a hot take. The analogy I'll give you here is that, I'm a university dude. I went to university. If you're watching the landscape version of this video, my degree is literally, my master's degree is hanging there. And I would not want to learn from someone who has less than 4 years experience doing the thing, right? I'm going to go to university for 4 years to learn something. I think there needs to be a threshold at which, yes, you go, I know how to do this thing. And so when I'm going to buy a digital product, or I'm going to buy a course, or I'm going to buy something, I want to see the lived, proven experience. And I think there are a lot of creators out there who maybe, had some early success, for example, on Instagram because they had a reel go viral, or they had one YouTube video go viral. And then they go, well, I'm going to now make a course or sell a digital product. And I think a lot of them miss the mark. I think it's actually Gary Vee, I think, says this in one way or another. I'm going to paraphrase him, where he says, like, the left-right hook. It's like the more you delay something, the more you'll get out of it, kind of. Where it's like, yeah, you could make a digital product right from the beginning, but then if you're always like, digital product, people are going to be like, oh man, I've heard it so many times from this guy. Whereas if you're like, here's all this free stuff, here's all this value I'm going to provide from you, and then all of a sudden you're like, by the way, I've been doing this for 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, however long. Here's everything I've learned over the last 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, whatever. And so I think there is value in delaying, in waiting. That being said, like I said, I wish I had done digital products sooner. Meaning there are lower value items, like, because you can sell a $300, $400, $500 course. You can. Everyone can do that. But there are lower value things like templates, like assets, like whatever that are, let's call them sub 100, sub $50 that I think anyone and everyone should be creating. But I do think there is value in waiting to the point where you've had social proof or a long period of time where you've shown that, yes, this is a thing that I can do, that you then go, boom, now I have this thing. So I think I answered the question.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's a really good perspective. I think what you're getting at is that the products will have far more value when they're authentic and they're tied to a growth journey, right?
Yeah.
So maybe something like selling a course for the sake of selling a course like MRR is inauthentic because, I mean, first of all, you didn't come up with it. You just bought the rights and you're you're reselling the rights of like a course, right? And it's like a $500-$600 course, but you're not necessarily leveraging that growth journey, that authentic growth journey that took you there. And so, first of all, I feel like on social media, online, we're getting sold at so much that the BS meter is pretty sensitive now. Yeah, like people are starting to detect like, how come I don't feel the rapport? I don't really see the history here. So like, why would I give you $500? Versus with a small digital product, like you're saying, like the sawdust of your everyday learnings, a little preset here or something that saves you 20 minutes in your workflow on a daily basis for $9.99 or $19.99 it's a low commitment, authentic product that I think people can, or even giving it for free, that you can build actually more relationship and trust with people with. And so when you get to the point of like selling a course or having a cohort or maybe even a done for you service, you've propped your value up so high that people trust you.
No, I agree. And I will say from my personal anecdotal experience is that the only courses I bought have been in those like upper tier of, they were like $400, $500, from a YouTube channel that has 5 years plus experience, that everyone in those videos has more experience. It's like, again, speaking from my experience, maybe there are times when you can create a course for like, hey, I'm a new guy and I'm talking to entry-level stuff, but I love exactly what you said, where it's like tie it to the growth journey and do things that make sense. Don't try to immediately jump to like level 100.
Yeah, and I actually just watched one of Alex Hormozi's videos last night where he's like, he quoted the exact thing you paraphrased from Gary Vee, but he's like, I would actually argue to give, and then wait until they ask you. And then you're like, yep, here you go, got it. Yeah. So that's, taking it to the whole next level. But of course, maybe it's a little bit of give and take because at the end of the day, you have to make some money too.
Yeah, because then you fall into like the law of reciprocity, right? Yeah. If you keep giving, people will be more inclined to give you back because the trust that you build. And I definitely felt that this last weekend with the Think Media team. This video is not sponsored by them in any way, shape, or form, but I really felt like when Sean was talking about his growth journey and the way that he packaged it, I felt like it was such a genuine product that was designed to help you achieve a result, and it felt so non-transactional. And I think that's the beauty about it, that so much trust and rapport has been built that you don't really think about the number, you think about the value, and you just have this trust level of success that like, this is going to help me achieve a certain result that I'm after. And that the only way that can really be built is through like the countless years of rapport, of content creation to back it up. And at a good price point with a high value margin, it's like, it's a no-brainer offer.
Yeah, and I honestly feel that from your content too, Anthony. I feel like there's really no hidden agenda. Like you're just genuinely happy to be doing what you're doing, talking about, gear and all those things. And yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a posts from you where you sell. Maybe there's room for more of that. I don't know.
I mean, I try. I exactly like what you're saying. It's like 99% of the time, I'm like, hey, here's a cool thing that happened. I'm just going to sit down and talk about it. And, you do get the occasional person who's like, why do you have a Canon camera in every single video? Does Canon sponsor you? And it's like, no, like, they don't. But, it is what it is, that you take the good, you take the bad, and just try to have as much fun with it.
Yeah. Next time someone asks that, just point them to this video and they'll find out.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, as part of your monetization strategy, if you feel however comfortable you feel, but is there anything that you're working on that has not been mentioned as a revenue stream that you could offer value to your audience down the line?
Yeah, I mean, I think I maybe alluded to it in the sense that we're talking about courses a lot, and I have given a lot of thought to creating a course. I have some outlines that I've made for them, and I've in the same way, you said, where it's like the audience kind of tells you what they want. In my case, I've identified a few things. One being, it's like, can you teach us more photography? It's like, yeah, I could teach you more photography. Can you teach us how to edit in Lightroom? It's like, yeah, I could teach you that. And then the other one is just, can you teach us how to create content like you do, meaning either short form or long form? And those are three areas. One of them in particular is one that's top of mind for me that would take priority. But there are, just based on the feedback and the audience seeing what they see in the comments, it's like, yeah, there is a course in the future, but I'm kind of like, I still don't feel like I've been doing this 2 years full time. Mind you, I have a background in photography that's 10 plus years, so I'm still kind of like, when's the right time? Should I do it? Should I wait? I don't know. I'm still very new to all this, so maybe take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, and just everyone's got their own take on all of this.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, you're someone with, hundreds of thousands of followers across the platforms, and it's interesting to hear that maybe even you are someone who might still face a dash of imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's, I'm sure, very relatable to hear, because we all more or less face it, I would say. But I would think that you're more than ready, considering just all the achievements you've accomplished, in such a short period of time. So, because even that in itself is, I think, like a credibility. The faster sped up timeline of, the amount of subscribers and all those achievements, the brand deals and all those things. So I definitely think you have a thing or two to teach. So yeah, we'll be on the lookout for that course. All right, so moving on, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, strategy. So it's 2024. How would you approach YouTube if you were to start over in 2024?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, knowing what I know now in the niche that I'm in, I mean, there's a lot of things that, like title thumbnail optimization, that are the obvious things that I didn't do back when I started, that I think applied back then and still apply now. I mean, I think that the trope is always like, oh, this niche is too crowded. And I would say, yeah, like some niches are too crowded. I would say if I was doing YouTube now, I would not make a camera photography centric channel. I would probably use that knowledge of cameras, knowledge of how to do good lighting, knowledge of how to set up video, to feed a video or a channel that was about some other interest that I had. And so that's kind of cryptic, maybe, but I think we all like. So I'll give an example. Is that I have a friend who, same knowledge, same abilities with photography as I do, who started a photography channel and quickly realized that he was equally as passionate and got just as many views on his like lifestyle tech videos, and has now kind of made that transition. And because he has an amazing camera ability, he is now making content that is visually higher quality than everyone else in that niche, if that makes sense. So if I was starting today, I would use my camera knowledge to just dominate some, like maybe start cooking videos, or I don't know. I mean, I'm not into cooking, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but just blow them out of the water, take it to the next level, right?
Basically.
So that actually kind of ties into our next question, which was about differentiating yourself, right? So what's some advice that you could offer to someone, a creator, an entrepreneur who wants to differentiate themselves? Maybe it's within a sub niche that they could, elaborate on, or, using their unfair advantage to their advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ali Abdaal is the one that always talks about what is your unique competitive unfair advantage or whatever. And I would say you absolutely need to lean into that, whatever it is. Also, the same thing for the aspects of your personality. It's like not everyone is going to be, an outgoing Peter McKinnon type. Some people may be super laid back, and whatever you are, lean into it, lean into your competitive advantage and who you authentically are, because you will attract more people who are like you than if you're trying to be someone else. And I think that's advice anyone on YouTube across the board would give you.
Yeah, we recently came across someone that said, you don't find your niche finds you. And by saying that, creating content that you're passionate about, interested about, and then kind of fine tuning it to see really where you fit, so you can keep your authenticity at the forefront. Because there's tons of creators in any given niche, but the only thing that'll help you stand out is your authentic self, and those little things in your personality that make you unique, right? It could be your lifestyle, it could be the way that you do things, or like you're saying, having a background with really good photo and video skills where you can dominate another niche, and using that to really help you stand out in that niche or pocket.
And I think you alluded to something here too, which is like, I think we all have a preconceived, like when we start YouTube or we start a channel or an Instagram page, we have a preconceived notion of what it should be, because maybe, I'm a photographer and it's going to be about photography. But like, don't be afraid to, again, be your authentic self, because there might be something else that comes through, then all of a sudden it does well, and you're like, oh, I just made a video like photographing my dirt biking or something, and then that video on dirt biking takes off, and you're like, maybe it's not the photography, it's the dirt biking. And so in the same way where I said don't necessarily make a channel about photography, make it about something else, but also be open-minded so that maybe your content starts here and then it becomes this and it becomes that, and then 5 years down the road you throw your expectations out the window and you're creating a type of content that you never expected and loving it just as much, if not more.
Yeah,
very well said. On the topic of creating content, and with that in mind, how much content do you publish in a week? Like, how often do you post?
So I'm on a little bit of a, I don't know if you want to call it a streak, but I am trying to get to 1,000 days straight of having posted a piece of short form content every single day. Wow. There's no like social media logic behind this, other than the fact I want to make like the Mr. Beast style video that's, I posted for 1,000 days straight, and here's what happened. Because I think, maybe that coincides with the launch of a course that I put out. Just saying. But I think there's a lot of misconception about the volume or the quantity of content that you need to put out. I think there's some correct information in the sense that people will say you need to post every day or 3 times or 12 times a day or whatever insane things they're saying. And it's like, yeah, when you're a new person, I absolutely think you should try to post as much as humanly possible, because then you have more data points. Same thing, starting a new YouTube video, post as much as possible. Post high quality content, low quality content, vlogging content, tutorial. Post everything to see what sticks and what looks good. Now, in terms of my schedule, I am on the try to post once every single day, just so I can say that I did it for 1,000 days straight. But really, it's an exercise for me in not feeling like I have to have something overly polished. So sometimes I just have a random thought throughout the day. I'll be sitting here at my computer and I'll be like, oh, you know what? I'm currently editing a photo, and I realized that there's something that I could share about this photo. And so I'll sit down and be like, here's how I composed this photo and the thoughts that I had going through the back of my head. And so sometimes it's really informal, and I find that it has, like, what does well has nothing to do with how it looks, or it's just like sometimes a video does well, sometimes it doesn't, and I think it's just it's me trying to pull back to being authentic and not feeling overly scriptive. And I find that sometimes if I don't, so sometimes I will batch content. That's probably another question you're wondering, is sometimes I will sit down and record like 5 or 6 videos in a row because someone has sent me something, and then there's like a stack of boxes, and I'm like, oh, I need to like get rid of this, so let's just open them all now and film a video. So I'll do that, but then I'll like, release them slowly. So there's some days where I'll go for like 5-6 days without having recorded anything because I recorded it the week before. And I find that when I go back to sit down to record myself, it's like sometimes I try to be overly like, I forget what it's like to be authentic. And so part of the experience of recording something every single day also helps you to just get into a groove of like, okay, I'm gonna post however it comes out is how it comes out. And if it doesn't do well, I can move on to the next thing tomorrow. So that's kind of like my strategy right now.
Wow, the 1,000 pieces of content in a row. That's crazy. And does YouTube play a role in that, or is that sort of a separate thing?
So, I mean, I don't think YouTube, I'm posting all those videos onto every platform, and then YouTube long form videos are on top of that. So it's 1,000 pieces of short form content, and then if I make a long form video, that's just kind of like extra, which sounds ridiculous, but I'm not counting it. Yeah.
And you're currently posting consistently on YouTube?
Yeah. So YouTube Shorts every single day, and YouTube long form once a week at least.
Okay. So you have an insane amount of volume. Something that we learned from Tom Nosk was, for a lot of the creators who are just starting out, is realizing that you don't have a content problem, you have a volume problem. So increasing the volume will increase the quality of your content versus trying to make every piece of content perfect. But you're at the volume stage now, right? And you got good content. So guide us through your workflow from literally like ideation to publishing in like 1 week's time frame. What does that look like?
So it can vary a lot. So again, some of the content is just super informal, where I have a thought, I will sit down, I have my camera is always set up, always ready to go to minimize that friction between, you don't want to be, I know this is coming from a point of privilege, but if you have a camera that you can set up, that you can leave, even if it's just your phone, even if your phone is just like my light's set up and you just put your phone on the tripod, having something that just minimizes that friction is super important. And so sometimes I'll just record whatever's off the top of my head, but a lot of the times I'll keep notes throughout the week that is, oh, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this. And so if I open up my notes app right now, I think, like I have a video about the Canon R8, a video about the Canon R5 Mark II, a video about mist filters. Like I have this list of things that I know I want to create. Some of them are more formal than others, so I need to go out and actually capture B-roll footage or photo samples. And so sometimes I'll have to like have a day or 2 days in a week where I go out and actually shoot things. I might have another day where I sit down and do all my talking head. And then I'll have, like, if I record maybe like 5 talking head videos in one day, like short form reels that are 30 to 60 seconds, I can usually also edit those in another day. So like one day of recording, one day of editing. And then I'll try to schedule it, at least on YouTube. The nice thing about YouTube is you can schedule things and it's very visual and you can like change the schedule and fit things back and forth. Whereas TikTok, you can only schedule for like 10 days out or something like that. So it's not as easy. And once you've scheduled it, you can't change it. So I'll try to schedule things on YouTube and then on a daily basis for like Instagram and TikTok, just go in and be like, okay, so yesterday I talked about this. Today it makes sense if I talk about this. And then maybe 2 days from now, we're showing something that's like a photo. And so I will strategize a little bit in terms of like the flow of the content making sense. Sometimes if I go on a trip or I'm away, I'll do a lot of informal videos where I just record them on my phone. The one that I've been doing lately is just like, I'll grab my camera and be like, here's a photo tip you can try if you're... And then I'll fill the blank with whatever I'm doing. So if you're out shooting in bright sunny conditions, if you're shooting on a wide angle lens. And so I'll literally, those thoughts come to me in the moment while I'm shooting. So there's like no pre-planning at all. It's just what makes sense and what is a teachable photography moment in this instance. And so I'll come back and like some of the ones that I have right now, I filmed when I was in Utah, like over a month ago, and I just haven't posted them, but they are kind of evergreen in the sense that it's a photo tip that will work whenever. So I'll kind of like bank those and then be like, oh, I need something to post today. I'm too busy because I'm editing a YouTube video. I don't have time to like record something new. And I'll just share one of these backlogged, pre-edited pieces of content.
And do you edit your own videos?
Yeah, so right now I'm a one-man show. I'm at the point where I probably could hire help. I'm just stubborn. But yeah, I do all the editing.
It's hard to let go of that as a creator, isn't it?
It is.
Until you realize how much time it could save you.
I know.
And
So then you typically, do you edit your content then on one day of the week and you try and get as much of it done as possible?
like batch edit?
I mean, that's the ideal. Most of the time I'll just like, okay, I've got 3 hours. I'm going to edit a couple pieces of content. So it really varies.
Mm-hmm. And then actually, I'm curious in terms of the strategy on Instagram you've got, photos or reels or carousels or a combination of all three. Is there strategy behind that?
Yes and no. I mean, I'll try to do carousels over individual photo posts because they're more engaging, blah, blah, blah. But really for me, like, I don't optimize my photo posts, if that makes sense. Like, if there's a photo I want to post that I think looks good, I'll just post it. And usually it's a photo that I've edited for a video. So for a YouTube video or for a TikTok. And I want to put it out there so that it lives on the Instagram grid so that it doesn't get lost.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, especially in your niche, right? It's pretty much a no-brainer. I'm sure you've got a backlog of beautiful images.
It's so bad. I wish I could take a break for a month and just edit all of the backlog of photos that I have.
Don't we all? I have vlogs. I should really give this to our editor, but I have vlogs all throughout. It was a month and a half through Thailand, and
we're talking like 10 years ago.
and like also through Europe. I probably have like 30 episodes that I told myself, oh, when I get back to Canada while I was traveling, I'll sit down and edit it, because at the time my computer was like so bad for video editing. Like it take me longer to like import footage than like anything. So now I have this backlog of stuff, and don't we all wish that we had that, just that window of time that we can just kind of catch up with the content, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on the note of strategy, do you have any tips for going viral? That's always the, hot topic. / is chasing virality the right thing to focus on, in your opinion?
Yeah, I don't think there's a tip other than the fact that you should just create compelling content, and that means like there's an audience out there that will enjoy it, right? And I like to think if I make this video, if I make this video and I post it and I came across it on my feed, is it a video that I would want to watch all the way through? Is it a video that I would want to share with someone? So I think the best piece of advice is just make content that people will want to watch, which is easier said than done. I think that really comes through experience. And then in terms of chasing virality, I feel like I am the anti-virality king, in the sense that early days on TikTok, I would have a video do well, and the prevailing opinion, the prevailing advice at the time was that make more videos like that viral video, just keep hammering them out. And I did the absolute opposite. So if I had a video do well, I was like, that's it. Like I don't want to become known for that type of video. So to kind of elaborate, it's like, if the thing that you make that goes viral is the thing that you want to continue to make, then absolutely. That is the best case scenario. But 9 times out of 10, it's a stupid video that you didn't expect, that, for whatever random reason went viral, and it doesn't make sense to replicate it. It doesn't make sense to chase that virality.
Yeah, and I think chasing virality puts the focus on short-term gain rather than long-term vision, right? It's great to have a video go viral. Actually, one of our friends, Anthony Dito, a musician, he made a genuine piece of content where he remixed a song, and it went viral. And we asked him the same question, like, what did you do to go viral? He's like, I was just myself, and it happened to go. But I'm still going to be creating content tomorrow and the day after, the month after, because I'm committed to that long-term vision. So really that perspective of, if you happen to go viral, great, is just another day. You still got tomorrow and forever to continue creating content.
Yeah, so I think the right question or point to make here is not to try to go viral, but just how can you create videos that are better and people actually want to watch, and not only that, but people watch all the way through, right? So of course, one of the things that we know about are, like you said, making captivating videos. So what goes into that is typically a good hook, because if they don't stop their scroll and are interested in the topic, then probably they're not going to watch the rest of the video. What was the other thing?
Retention.
But what about it?
Oh, yeah. Well, keeping it interesting. The hook is a promise, and then you have to deliver on that promise. So having some sort of value to actually deliver. And there's ways, as that you can kind of hold on to attention for a little bit longer, not for the sake of keeping that attention, but really for the sake of communication, to make sure that whatever value you want to deliver gets communicated so that the audience can get the full spectrum of the value that you're trying to provide.
And I think that's it's a good exercise for any content creator to try both. Do a video that is edited for retention, where you're like, okay, I need music, I need sound effects, I need quick edits, I need lots of B-roll, I need lots of whatever. And I'll make those videos but it's infrequent, right? And so I know that if I'm trying to reach a certain audience, if it's something important to me, then I'll give it that up to the next level. But also your content kind of needs, I'm borrowing one from out of Matty Hapoya's playbook, because he says this a lot, where you need content to have highs and lows, because if everything is a high, then nothing is a high, right? So have those feature big, epic videos, but then just have a talking head video that's a single take with no cuts. And having that contrast, I think, will help. The lows maybe relate to your regular audience, whereas the highs are like, okay, we're bringing in new audience here. So different videos, different editing styles for a different type of audience. Yeah, exactly.
And I noticed with your style of video, obviously your approach is to keep it very authentic and current, that you're not using subtitles and sound effects and a whole bunch of B-roll. I mean, for some pieces of content you do, but for others you don't. And what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I used to, early days of TikTok when there was no subtitles, meaning there was no auto captions. None of these platforms had that. It was like, it started as a way, because I had literally had requests on my video that was like, I am a, hearing disabled person, or I'm a deaf person, and I can't, your videos look great, but I don't know what you're saying. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I'll burn in captions for those people. And it started as like a very innocent way of like a practical reason. And eventually I realized, oh, this is a way to like get people's retention. Like you see quick text, whatever. And then I stopped doing it because one, now all the platforms do the auto captions where you can either turn them on or turn them off. And two, I have a strategy now, which is like, I mean, if there's like hard audio that you can't, like it's like windy or something, or that someone else talked, sometimes I'll put the text on the screen. But, or like if the hook is part of what someone was saying, then I'll put the captions on the screen. But really, as an aesthetic preference, I don't like having the captions anymore. I also find that people tune into the captions and get distracted by the captions when what I really want them to look at is the photo examples or the visuals. And so, you can do the captions as a way to keep people's attention, but there is an aspect of overdoing it that I think removes from your authenticity when you put way too much effort into the captions.
Yeah, that's true. Because thinking about my own behavior, I also sometimes will fixate on the captions too much and then completely miss the person's face or whatever other visual elements are coming on. So that's a good point.
Yeah, that's why we keep our captions. We do put captions on our videos, but we keep them super simple, because then you have the ones that like pop up and animate and swoop in and have emojis and like your eyes are just on the caption.
Zooming
like,
and
what was that
whatever,
video?
And no.
It's a whole roller coaster of emotions. That being said, I don't mind sometimes the way certain people do it. For example, if they're saying something and it's just like that specific statement will come up to just sort of enhance whatever they're saying, right? Because then it does kind of like subliminally
stick
hit
with you
harder.
Yeah.
So with all these short form platforms in mind, I'm curious, what would you do if Instagram and YouTube shut down tomorrow?
Oh, it's a good question.
Oh, and TikTok. Let's say all
I
the
mean,
above.
TikTok might, right? TikTok might get banned in the US. So I think, one, the probability of YouTube going away is very, very low. And if it does, I think we all have worse things to worry about than our content not being visible. Like there are so many things that I would be like, crap, I don't know how to do that anymore because there's no longer a YouTube video. So I mean, let's focus on the alternate reality where, let's say, TikTok goes away and Instagram goes away. I think I am perfectly still fine. I think I can continue to do what I do. I would say it has very minimal impact on my revenue or even just what I would make because I can still post it all to YouTube. But let's say in the next step up from that, all short form content goes away. Now, this might be a bit controversial, but I personally am one who is not a big fan of short form content. I know it might seem like, oh, Anthony, you make a ton of short form content. How are you not a fan? because it's gotten to the point now, having made thousands of pieces of content and almost 1,000 for 1,000 days straight, it's like, it is a lot of time. And I'm still waffling on whether or not it's worth the return on the investment, at least for me, compared to long form videos. So I have a huge preference. Like if you were a new content creator and you said, Anthony, what should I make? I would say forget short form. Just make long form videos. Now, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts? On that?
Well, I think everything you're saying is resonates with us. We've created lots of short form content. I mean, we've archived quite a few on our Instagram, so our posts are actually lower than what we actually put out.
Yeah.
But when thinking about longevity, business strategy,
Trust building,
yeah, like YouTube, I think takes first place in terms of the one platform where you can get away with posting one video a week and still have, an insane amount of growth and trust building with your audience and rapport versus short form content. I was telling this to Jess the other day, like it's so easy to experience burnout editing, especially with short attention spans, like the captions and the B-roll and the sound effects, and make it all look nice, especially when we as photographers and video creators have such a focus on delivering high quality video as well. You got to do your color grading and your sound design, and everything's got to look good. That's just the way I like things, but it becomes really tiring. It could, one short form piece of content can take half an hour, or if it's really complex, an hour to edit, and completely from importing and managing the data till it's ready to be posted.
Yeah.
And so you start amounting, right? If you post 7 days a week, that's 7 hours. Well, those 7 hours can go to an evergreen or a long shelf life piece of content on YouTube that's going to serve you a lot further. So the way that we're going to be switching our strategy up is we're going to be putting YouTube at the forefront and let the short form platforms be the sawdust of both the topics and the content that we create on the larger platforms. And I think that's going to really just alleviate the pressure of all that short form volume demand, because like you're saying, the return on investment on short form, it's hard to see unless you have a really, really dialed in strategy. Like some of the creators that we know, like Tom Noski, he focuses on short form and he makes a killing from it, but he has a very fine-tuned strategic approach to short form content that I think it's really hard to get to without that mindset in mind.
Yeah, I'll add one more thing before. So I more than likely at the end of this 1,000 day experiment, I will do the same thing, where either I dial back my short form content, or my short form ends up being a funnel down for my long form content, or I just end up doing the very informal, no editing, single takes, and that's the easy short form content.
Curious, when you shoot your short form content, are you shooting it in a specific color profile, or are you just going straight from camera into the editing software? How much time and what's your workflow on the editing of that short form content?
Yeah, so we talked about templates a little bit. It's I have everything templated. It's out of camera into Premiere Pro. I have my color grading layer already there, my effects, my adjustments, everything is there. So it's a very streamlined workflow where if I really wanted to, I could probably record, edit, and post a video in 15 minutes, I would say.
Wow. Excellent. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah, it's dialed.
That's the goal, always, for sure. So we touched a lot on organic content. Do you have any opinion on ads? Do you do any ads yourself? Do you just do organic and that's enough? Or, do you think ads play a role at all for a content creator?
So I'm 99.9% organic. The only ads I've ever been involved in is if let's say I do a sponsored video and the company wants to whitelist or spark ads or boost the video, but that is like, I'd say most of the time my content is performing well enough organically that the brand doesn't see the value in running it as a paid ad. I don't do any paid ads for myself. Again, most of what I'm doing, like, I think there was a point when I was doing like weddings that I thought I tried for a little bit, just doing like paid Google ads or whatever. But like, yeah, that's the extent of what I've done.
Yeah. And touching on that, because a lot of people who maybe aren't doing it full time, the content creation thing, they're more so just business owners who are trying to leverage social media to get leads. You focusing on organic content primarily, do you get a lot of leads from short form and long form platforms who are maybe asking you for services that you may or may not choose to do?
I did for a while when I was maybe focusing my content more around, like, when I was doing more weddings, I put out a few videos that were like, here's what a wedding should cost, or here's what I bring when I shoot a wedding or whatever. And I would definitely get more inbound leads then. But because, again, I'm not focusing my business around that, most of what I'm getting in terms of like non-social content requests for work is just like, a friend of a friend wants something. Are you willing to do it? So I don't have enough experience in this season of creating videos to kind of comment on the current state of that.
I mean, I would say there still is opportunity though, for business owners and entrepreneurs. Like if you want to use
Absolutely.
video and, social media as a lead generation platform, there definitely is an opportunity. A lot of people are like, oh, my reach is way down this year. Is organic dead? Do I need to start doing ads? And
I think I'll add a little bit to this, because one of the things that I've always told people, and I'm stealing this. Who am I stealing this out of? I think Taylor Jackson, who is a Waterloo-based wedding photographer, said this. Or I'm paraphrasing him at least, where it's like, I think we see views and numbers and go, well, my video didn't get 1,000 views, so nobody cares, and I'm not going to get any leads. And I understand that from the perspective of when you compare that to like, oh, Anthony's video got 10,000, 30,000, 50,000 views. My video only got 200. And it's like, okay, well, are you from small town Ontario where there's only like 500 people and you got 200 views? You just reached like half of your small town. So I think that the organic social is still incredibly valuable, but I think you need to know where it ranks and how the views and the comments and everything you're pulling in is proportional to maybe the work that you're doing and the audience that you're trying to reach.
Yeah, like it's relative, right, to a lot of things. Like a lot of things depend on it, for sure.
Definitely agree. The way that I kind of worked my mind around that was like, if you were to look at your view count and say it's 400 views on a video, and like just for a moment, close your eyes and picture 400 people sitting in front of you with all eyes on you, right? And then at that point, ask yourself, is 400 views, do you perceive that as little or as a lot? And have you earned yourself the audience of 10,000 views? Are you going to go up on stage and are you going to deliver value that you're going to retain, and get people clapping at the end of whatever you show? Or are these just kind of the reps that you're putting in to get yourself to that bigger stage for that bigger audience? Kind of like, I love music. So for like a musician, you start with the small stage so you can get to the big stage. You got to earn that big stage. And, when I used to play shows and I had 100 people at the show, that was a lot of people, 100 people times $5, it paid for our dinner and a couple beers after the show. And like, that was good back in the day. So never underestimate the views that you're getting, because like you're saying, if you are from a small town, that could be half the town that you're reaching.
Exactly.
For sure.
I think we touched a lot on the opportunities already, so maybe let's just go to the advice.
Well, yeah, I think this question is also good. You have touched on a few of these things, but if you were to put it in a nutshell, like what opportunities have opened up for you as a result of building your personal brand? And like, would you recommend creative entrepreneurs to build out their personal brands for those opportunities to come?
Yeah, I mean, I think networking is a huge one. The more your personal brand is visible online and people understand you, it's like the more they trust you, not only from like the client perspective of the client sees who you are and how you work, but also just like, for me, the biggest thing has just been connecting with other creators in this space, other photographers, other videographers, other YouTubers. And, you know, like, they might not all necessarily like live in my area, that they're people I can go out and physically shoot with, but, you know, there's knowledge that exists that you then get access to. You know, you chat and you go, well, how is this working for you? How is this working for you? And the nice thing about social media is then you get to be social on it and you get to learn from what other people have done, so that you're not just living in this self-contained bubble.
I'm curious then, when it comes to mission and purpose, this is one of the themes from the Grow with Video Summit this weekend. At least the one that really spoke to me was mission and purpose. First part of the question is, was your mission and purpose ever specifically to build your personal brand when you started?
I don't think it wouldn't be a part of my mission statement, but it was maybe something I subconsciously was aware of. Like, I think we're all self-conscious in some way or another of how we're perceived online. Like, even silly things like, oh, how do I sound? How do I look? How do I whatever? And I try to make as much of a conscious effort to be positive with my content. I mean, there was definitely some videos I made early on that were like maybe a little bit more negative or a little bit more like ranty, if you want to put it that. And you go, okay, you know, what did I achieve out of this video? Is this a video that people would connect with? And what am I saying about the person I am? And does this video accurately represent the person I am? And, you know, I tend to be a fairly positive person overall in general. And so, you know, I don't want to, so like in terms of me building my brand, is that I maybe didn't have a statement or a line out there, but I subconsciously knew like there's a certain type of content that I want to make and a certain type of content that I don't want to make.
So talking now currently and where you are now, after you know, going through that initial stage of wanting to create content and now where you are, what would you say, or have you thought about what your mission is currently, what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, I like to tell people that it's, you know, so whatever it is that I'm doing, I like to create teachable photography moments. And that is more so to attract the everyday photographer, not so much the professional photographer, because like my background, I didn't go to school for photography. I didn't work in a studio as a, you know, I'm not a DP, I'm not whatever. And so my mission in a sense is to create videos that the everyday person who just, you know, bought $1,000 camera from Henry's if you're in Canada, or B&H if you're in the US or wherever, you know, just wants to know how to use it. What can I do in my everyday life? So a lot of my YouTube videos are just in the moment, like they get packaged as a vlog. They're not a vlog because I'm not like, here's my breakfast, here's my whatever, but I'm packaging it in that, you know, handheld vlog style, but then showing photos and then giving you the tips. That's like, here's what I used, here's the camera settings, here's a photo tip takeaway. And so I try to make my content as accessible as I can to that type of audience.
I think that's a massive takeaway for all the listeners who are considering creating content. It's to create content that isn't self-serving, but serving others. And I think that's really where the growth comes in. Like, people can see whether you're creating something for virality or for a self-serving purpose versus creating content to help people. And I think when you start helping people, it really props up your value. and it really props up you as a person and your own values and the things that you stand for. And I think that just opens up far more opportunity in life in general, because it's at the end of the day, like, it's not really about us, it's about what other people can do with the lesson.
What advice do you have for entrepreneurs who want to build their personal brands but aren't sure if it's worth it, or aren't comfortable on video, or don't know what kind of content to create?
You don't know until you try it. I think that's the one thing that I would say to anyone. It's, you just got to start, and you might realize that you hate it, or you might realize that you love it. And it's only through experience that you'll learn whether or not it's something that you want to continue with.
And what about for those who think, I'm just going to go the ad route. I'm not going to go the organic and creating content that helps. I'm just going to put money on ads. What's your take on that approach too?
I mean, I would say if you're trying to build a personal brand, that is the absolute worst way to do it. I know all these platforms have these tools, and it seems like an easy shortcut way. I would say instead of spending $100, $500, $1,000 on ads, take that money, reinvest it, and make better content.
100%. Couldn't
Yeah,
agree
100%
more.
agree.
Yeah. And the last question is, what is next for you?
Oh, well, today I'm going to be editing a video for YouTube that's going to go up tomorrow, but no, long term, I do definitely, I have a course that is brewing in the back of my head. That is something I definitely want to get to the point where, like, I'm at the point where I need to hire help, whether that's an editor or something. But it's interesting because I'm at this point where I need to decide, what do I do with my channel? Like, what is the next step? Is it going full scale, hiring a massive team, or is it keeping small and kind of just doing a lot of it myself, maybe with an editor or one other person? Other than that, I don't know. It's summer now, and almost, and I'm trying to keep things. Well, I guess, is it summer? Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Almost.
Sure.
Still
I don't
spring.
know.
Feels like summer here. It's hard for me to answer that question.
Yeah.
For
Yeah, it's
Canadians.
hot enough to be summer. But for me, the summer is going to be fairly relaxing. Not too much formally planned. I do have a backlog of videos that need to be edited. Some photo tips. Some what's one that I've got coming up? 2 videos on photo tips. But yeah, some good ones. I recently shot some stuff with helicopters, and I've been dying to finish the edit because it's going to be a fun one.
That's epic. Can't wait to see that.
Now, we usually do a bit of a hot seat, just a handful of questions. Are you down for that?
Let's do it.
All right. So, Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram,
Instagram or YouTube?
YouTube,
Camera or iPhone? Or Android?
camera, definitely.
Canon or Sony?
It's Canon.
Carousels or Reels?
Carousels.
What?
Evergreen or trends?
Oh, evergreen. Don't even ask that question.
Early mornings or late nights?
Based on what I do, not what I want, late nights.
Okay. Hire an editor or edit yourself?
Hire an editor. Just please, someone tell me how.
We'll talk after the podcast. No, I'm just kidding. Favorite team sport? If you're into that kind of thing.
Favorite team sport? You stumped me, because I would have... Favorite team sport? You know what? I'm Canadian. I'll say hockey.
All right. Do you play?
No, I'm terrible.
No. Just to watch. Fair enough.
Favorite food?
Steak.
Choice.
Nice. Our last guest said the same thing.
Number one piece of equipment that you would upgrade?
That's hard. because I feel like everything I have suits my needs, but I'm at the point where I might upgrade my camera, so I'm going to say camera.
Okay. And let's say that you don't have any of the equipment that you have now and you're starting out content. First piece of equipment, you already have an iPhone. Let's just say you have an iPhone. First piece of equipment for you to invest in.
Microphone.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because you can use that with an iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you just go outside and film in natural lighting.
Yeah, exactly. The sun is your light source, right? Cool. All
Awesome.
right. That's all we've
All
got for you today. Thank you so much for taking the time. And yeah, it's been really fun chatting.
That was a really good chat, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you so much for watching, but don't click away yet. Make sure to check out our conversation with Tom Noski, six-figure content creator on Instagram, who's absolutely killing it at personal branding, where we talk about mindsets and workflow. You're definitely going to want to check that out.
And with that being said, make sure to give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, subscribe, and let us know your biggest aha moment down in the comments.
We'll see you in the next one. Peace.